Hello and welcome to our tutorial. We are going to look at character selection in this tutorial here. So, first thing we need to do is we need to have a look at all the different kind of components that we have on our level. So we're going to start off with our four characters here and how they work. So I have an object here. It's a sphere. And that's it there. I have turned off the renderer and the collider, so the size of it and the only thing that's really important is its position. I used the same script that I used in the previous tutorial when we were looking at the main menu. So I'm just going to double click on that and open it in MonoDevelop. So I'll have a quick look at that. But I'm not going to spend too long on it because it's the same script. It's a rotational script, so when you push right, push left on the screen on your mobile device, it'll rotate the platforms that are there. So we have a variable object, and that is the sphere I just clicked on in Unity. I've got my start point and the point I'm moving to, the distance that I move, the buffer we talked about before if you're under the dead zone, and then the rotation speed of said object. So, like I said, we examined that script in the last tutorial, so if you have any questions about that, maybe go look at the other tutorial. Now, what does that do? That just simply rotates the sphere. So let me press play here and see. I have a Samsung Galaxy S6 connected, and so when I swipe right and swipe left on my screen, you can see a character has come up here. We'll have a think about it or talk about that in a minute. So, but I can rotate the platforms using rotate right, rotate left. So let's just have a little look at what's actually happening there. So on this rotator here, I've got so this is my sphere, and then I've placed 4 empties 90 degrees away from each other. That's all they are. You can see that they have no components apart from a transform. So as this object, so if I select this here, as we rotate, that empty is simply rotating with the sphere. Now this base plate here, base plate 1, has a script on it. So let's have a look at this. It's called rotate platforms. So you can see it's a very small script. We'll open it up here in MonoDevelop. And hopefully, if I zoom in here a bit, Control++, let's see if that works. That doesn't work. Anyway, we'll just zoom in so you get a better view. That's it. So, so I've got a target, and then my position is the target's position. Okay, you'll see that there's no rotation in this. Okay, so it's only position. So we go back to Unity here, and we're still live in the game. So basically, this is moving with the sphere, and then if we look at plate 1, excuse me, the object that it's following is rotator 1. And similar, plate 2 is following rotator 2. Plate 3 is following rotator 3. So they're following the position of the empty, but not its rotation. So hence we have the platforms rotating with the sphere, but always pointing in the forward direction. So not terribly complicated, but a nice simple way to implement this sort of character selection process. Now let's just stop that there. So that's that's how this is working here. The characters, each character, we'll start with this guy here, is a 3D mesh. They were made in Blender. They have. I'm not going to go through how characters work in Unity. Hopefully, we'll run through a non-player character in the game a little bit later on. But this character has an animator. I think it just has an idle cycle, so it plays automatically. So these are not terribly complicated. What is interesting though is it has a capsule collider. which is kind of surrounds most of the character, and that's important. We're going to be using that for touch input in a moment, which we're going to examine. And in fact, if we look at all of the different characters, so if I look at Phoebe is the name of this character here, kind of like a wizard kind of character. So she has a capsule collider, the troll has a capsule collider, and the fairy has a capsule collider. Now, let's go to our head-up display. So level 1 head-up display. Now, what have we got? We've got our head-up display background. So the background is, you can see it here. It's just a very simple PNG file that's turned into a sprite. We've got a button, which is our main menu button. And yeah, so it runs. So when I click on this button here, it runs a script that's on the character controller. And we'll have a look at the character controller in a minute. Now, so apart from that, we have these items here that are in the head-up display. So I'm just going to go to the first one, which is thump, and turn it on. So this is a two-dimensional sprite, and it's in the head-up display. It was added simply by going component, UI, add image. The image was the sprite, and then this is what we're turning on and off. So we are activating the object. So let's have a look at the script, this here character select script, and we'll look at that in monodevelop. So character select. So I've got, first of all, excuse me, I've got 4 game objects, and then I've got 4 additional game objects. So let's just look at why we would have that. So what we want to do is when I select this character, I want his image to appear. So 1, 2. When I select this character, its image appears, this character, this image, etc. So 4 characters, 4 images. Hence we have 8 variables. So there's my 8 variables. Each one is a game object. And you can see I've imported the scene manager so I can change scene. So we'll just start with the simple execution of this button. So I've got my select button. When the select button is pressed, it's going to run the main menu function in the script. And the main menu function is scene manager, load scene, main menu. So that's all that does. So we press this button, we go back to our main menu. It's on click, so it's actually using mouse input. So it's single touch input. So if I press it now on my phone, there we go. We're back to our main menu. But it's not using, this button is just generic sort of mouse input, so it's single touch. Okay. So let's have a look at the rest of this game controller script. And it looks, I don't need that. It looks a bit more complicated than it is, but it's, once we kind of nail one part of this, and the rest is straightforward. So function updates, we run it every frame. So if input touch count equals 1, and this is very similar, this starting point to the script here that we examined the last day. So if the first touch tap count equals 1, so this is for single touch, not for double touch. And then I've got a debug, so I don't need that. These 3 lines here, we looked at this before Christmas, but this is slightly more complex, and this is a raycast. Okay, so and I'm using this particular type of raycast, so screen point to ray, and the raycast is being cast at my touch position. So basically, if I have a mobile device, be it a phone or a tablet, when my touch count equals 1, my first touch, the position at which I touch the screen, I'm asking it to cast a ray, and that ray is cast perpendicular to the screen. So it's basically, as we look into Unity here, if we look at our head-up display, so So we've got our y-axis and our x-axis, so it's being cast along z. So wherever we touch on the screen, it casts in. So if I hit something, so if physics.writecast hit, then what I can find, and this is an interesting, function of array, is that I can, when array intersects something, I can find information about the object I've intersected. So in this instance, I can find its name. So I say, if I have a hit, so if a hit's not equal to null, so if it's a positive result, if I've hit something, and the hit name equals character1 name. So this goes back to how I define my characters up here. So if I have touch input at a particular position, cast array on the z-axis, if that hits something, anything at all, now obviously it needs, as we've had a look here, it needs a collider. No collider, we don't get any input, or we have no collision with the ray. So the ray requires the object be on collision with to have a collider. So if the object that the ray collides with, if its name equals the name of object 1, which is this object here. Now if we pop into Unity, let's see what we've actually set in here. So thump, which is this character here in blue. So if I press onto the screen and I cast a ray that touches the collider on this character, then very simply thereafter it says two things. The first one we'll look at that is it sets character pick, which is our variable up here. It's just an image. Set active to be true, and then set the other 3 to be false. So if one of these was already on display, so if we were showing a picture from another character, it would be turned off, and this one is set to be turned on. So let's have a look at that in action. So if I touch the thumb character, his image appears. And I'll rotate this a tiny bit, and we'll see it working with the other characters. So I'm going to touch on the fairy character here, and she appears there. On the troll, and then I've called, that was me rotating, this is the wizard. So the way this is set up, it might be obvious now from the script, but this object here, this wizard character, is in front of this other character. So if I wanted to press the thumb character, I may not be able to actually select that character, which is why we need to be able to rotate. So we can bring one character to the front, press that character and select it, but the selection process will work regardless of where the character is positioned in the 3D space. So if we go back to our script, that's how the pictures are turned on and off. And you can see that these functions are just repeats of each other. So once you understand that once, so if the name is character 4, then set character picture 4 to be true and turn off the other ones. Now there's one final piece of functionality in this which is very important. And this is sort of this is how we communicate with our game level. So what we're going to do is, if I press character 1, then I say player prefs, set string, player name is character 1. Now if I want to retrieve that information, so this is no use to me here, but just for demonstration. So I can say if player pref dot get string player name is character 1. So I can say if it equals character 1, then do something. So this is a very powerful little statement here that we're not using in this script, but that's sort of its the pair. So I can go and set this string to be character 1, and then I can say if the player name equals character 1, then do something. And the do something will very simply be in our game level. So when we actually load our game, we're going to load in a prefab, which will be the first-person component of these characters. So let's say, for example, in the troll, what we'll see is an arm. Now, so I haven't got it set up yet, but we'll work on this in the next few days. So we'll have the troll's arm as our first-person sort of prefab, but only if we've selected the troll here. So basically, the last character we've selected is put in. And what's nice about this system here is, if I select this character, its name is placed in this variable. If I, 10 seconds later, press another character, what was there is overwritten. So we're saying set the string to be character 2. So whatever is the last character we've selected will be, when we press main menu and then go to play the game, will be the character we play. Now if I just stop this, and so at the moment we haven't selected anyone. So when we're doing our game level, we'll have to have a fifth option, which is if I haven't selected anyone, then I'll have to set a player as the default player. So it could be the troll, or it could be whichever one I want. So we'll have a fifth option when we load our game. But that's how the character selection works. So I've got 8 variables. 4 of them are character objects with colliders. 4 of them are images, just to indicate which one has been selected. How do I select them? Well, I use touch input. The touch input generates a raycast. If the raycast hits the object, it will swap out the sprite, and then it will save to memory in player preferences the character's name. We can recall that information, so character 1, 2, 3, and 4, on a different level. So, what I would like you guys to do, if you are watching this in class and I'm not there, I would like you to not bother setting up this rotational platform, because we've done that the last day. What I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to, if I just save this and create a new scene. So what I would like you to be able to do is create a three-dimensional object, duplicate it, and have a second three-dimensional object. And I'd like you to be able to, if you select either one of these, that you change a sprite. So that sprite could be any sprite at all. So you turn the sprite on or turn the sprite off. And that you also, while turning the sprite on and off, you select character, that you use this here, that you save a string with the character's name, so that you can call that back on another level. So that's sort of basically the crux of what I'd like you to be able to do and test it. And I haven't given you the code to test it on another level, but if you can, if you find yourself with time to spare, create a button on a canvas, move to a second level, and then use the callback function. So if player preferences, and instead of being set string, it's get string. If the player name equals character 3, or in your instance character 1 or 2, then do something. And the do something could be quick game or move the cube or whatever you want it to do. But have a consequence of touching one of these on this scene, create a consequence in another scene. Okay, so see what you can do with that.